have to warn you, you may come across things you may not want to see. Is everyone ready? Okay, let's start.
Hey guys, we have Jeff Rondeau. Jeff is an actor in Trapped, of course, played a part of a detective, but his story is that he is a doctor, loved the arts, the theater, the acting. Jeff, what kind of a doctor are you? I forgot.
Obstetrician gynecologist.
How much about sex trafficking and sex abuse did you know in your personal life? And the other thing is in your doctor professional life as well.
I was certainly aware of sex trafficking, but I had nowhere near the awareness that I subsequently acquired from being a part of Trapped. I knew it was an issue, but typically not one that gets a lot of press or something that a lot of people talk about. But as you indicated, in my professional life, seeing exclusively women, I certainly had a fair amount of exposure to people who were not in a good place. And as you know, there are a lot of different kinds of abuse. So I certainly was exposed to that. But thankfully, not anyone who was actively involved in, so to speak, trafficking. We certainly made it a point to publicize that, if you will, in some of the public spaces within clinics about, if you're in trouble, if you're in situations like, please contact. So yeah, I did have some exposure.
When we were making this film, like I am the kind of a person who jumps into things and thinks it's the right thing to do, and like there's no looking back. So I jumped into making the film, which is great. I thought and still think that it is the right thing to do. So I did go ahead and make the film. But now since I'm coming out of making off because we're done with the film, now I'm getting into marketing. And the more I get into it, the more I see that nobody knows about it or
Right.
nobody wants to talk about it. And why do you think that people avoid speaking about sex trafficking or sex abuse in our society?
I think there's a couple of reasons. Certainly, still to this day, discussing anything with regard to sex is kind of still a taboo. People aren't super comfortable talking about that. And then when you start getting into areas like abuse and trafficking, there's a lot of shame associated with that, certainly for the victims. And shame lives really well in the shadows. But when shame is brought out into the light, that's when things change. So I think part of why people don't talk about it very much is it's uncomfortable, it's really unpleasant, and there's a lot of shame associated with it. I think those are the main reasons.
We have tried in Trapped to show that, it's not her fault. It's not your fault. And that's what we want to tell people. It's not your fault. So don't make it a hush hush thing, because the more we do a hush hush thing, the better we arm the predator. They
Yeah.
become stronger, knowing the fact that, hey, I can get away with it because no one's going to talk about this. And that's something that I would like people to switch their way of thinking.
And I think you hit it on the head in terms of bringing that message home to the victim about it's not your fault. That's an incredibly empowering message for people to hear, and is really sometimes hard for them to take it in. So I think continuing to bring that point home is really, really important.
People want films for entertainment. Great. And at the same time, people don't like to speak about sex abuse and sex trafficking. Great. Why am I going against everybody's grain and saying, no, here, you go, watch it? I mean, I know the film is very, very entertaining. I promise you, let the first minute and a half pass, which is also very, very strong and it gives a lot of information. I hold you guys tight for an hour and a half. I should have let go a little bit, but I didn't. I kept everybody so tight that it's impossible. So then I ask, why will anybody watch our film, Jeff?
Right.
I have the two negatives
Yeah.
going against us, right? Why? Why will they watch it?
Most people typically will go to movies for entertainment, but I think most people are aware there is much more to film, to the arts than entertainment. It's learning. And certainly, in my own circles, when I've talked about the film, I tell people this is an important topic that you're going to learn from. This isn't like a giggle fest movie. It's not that way. As you said, it's captivating, but it's bringing home a lesson. And I think for a significant amount of people, they want to expand their body of knowledge and to be able to share that with other people. And this is the kind of movie where you will be moved yourself and then moved to share what you've learned with others. Hey, I saw this movie. Did you know? And I think that'll spark conversation.
Marketing keeps asking me a question. Who's your audience? Who do you want to target? And as a director, I say, I want you to target the people who love movies.
Yeah.
And then they say to me, but that's not what you made the movie about. You made the movie about sex trafficking and sex abuse. And if you are going to target the movie buffs, so to speak, will they be entertained? I'm like, yeah, I know they will be entertained. I will lose anything if they are not entertained. I mean, entertainment is a broad word, right? Entertainment can be anything. Even when I make you guys cry, which I promise you, there will be a lot of tears. I promise you that. That is entertainment as well, right? Some people love to cry. They can't get it out, in public. They get it out in the dark walls of a movie theater. So
Right.
it is entertaining. So, in your opinion, I am stumped as to who I should push. Yes, I do want people to be aware of it. But then I feel when I push that topic, I am I am resting on I'm stepping on that topic to elevate me, meaning our film.
Right.
And I'm fighting with that because I don't think I made the film for that purpose. I
Sure.
didn't make the film for the purpose of, I made a film, go watch it. I made the film for the purpose of this horrible crime happens here, watch it. But now,
Mhm.
as a creative, I'm shifting and I'm saying, I've accomplished that. I know our audience will take home the awareness of sex trafficking. I know that.
Yeah.
But as a creative, I'm saying to myself, no, I want them to go to the movies because it is directed really well, or they're amazing actors, or look at the lighting there, So I'm
Yeah.
fighting with that. Where do you think I should lean into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think where you're going with it is good, but I think pulling in the people who by definition are really invested in this sort of thing, whether it's like I'm speaking from my own local area, a crisis center, a rape and abuse center, medical centers, emergency rooms that deal with this sort of thing. The homeless community, people who support the homeless, healthcare. Again, I think those are the people who this topic will resonate even more with. And I think their ability to share that with others will really be helpful. And honestly, well, I'm sure you'll have some time with Jimmy Fallon. I mean, that's a great opportunity for you to promote our film. But honestly, trying to get it down to sort of victim level, if you will. At what school age is it appropriate for kids to see this? Obviously not kindergarten, but at some age, that's an audience too. That's primary prevention right there.
We did everything possible not to show skin. I personally just thought that it would be a insult to a victim, and we are making this film to raise awareness. How could I go showing skin? It would be absolutely the worst thing. I think anyone from the ages of 9 onwards would be able to watch it. It's a mental drama which is
Yeah.
dark, but it's real. So, do you have or know anyone in your life that has gone through this personally?
I've seen people in my professional life who have been exposed to a variety of levels of abuse, which is wildly unfortunate. But yeah, I have had some exposure on the professional side of things.
Did you come across anybody there who was abused and was forced to have an abortion or something to that effect?
Certainly, you have to have an eye, if you will, looking for symptoms of or signs of physical abuse. Certainly, in people that I had an established relationship with and had seen for long periods of time, you can kind of, and you don't have to be a physician to do this, right? You just have to be an empathic human, but you
Yeah.
can sort of feel like something's not right, something's off here, and I think that's important for people to know,
Yeah.
whether it's community members, friends, church groups, what have you. Like, this person that's in front of me, I mean, you never miss an opportunity to say, "Hey, are you doing okay? I just want to check in with you. Are you doing okay?" And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the messages for all of us.
Have your senses heightened in terms of figuring out, like, hey, wait a minute, I am at the airport traveling, but I see this guy and he's not nice to the girl, or he could be something. Have you started to be aware of your surroundings that way?
Once you're involved in the subject matter of this film, I don't think you can go back to a level of comfortable ignorance where you're
Yeah.
not looking for that. Um, I had a recent experience that I think brings home another piece of this. It's not just what you see in front of you, it's also what you can sort of project happening in the future. I was waiting in line for a particular event, and there was this woman, I think she was this little girl's mom. This kid must have been in maybe late elementary school. And this little girl was crying a lot, not sure about what. But this mom is just berating her about crying, and oh my God, stop crying, you're embarrassing me. I mean, and I'm standing next to them, and all I can think about is this constant shame that's being infused. And I couldn't say nothing. I said to the woman, I said, it's okay for her to cry. Feelings are okay. Little girl was validated, and I said to her, I said, it's okay. I said, it sounds like you're having a hard time, but it's okay. But the point of the story is, and sort of the subject matter between the daughter and the mom in our film. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's little events that set up the emotions that may lead you to make decisions in your older life that aren't so great.
I have become very aware. And there's a tipping point. you know.
Mhm.
So sometimes I'm saying to my wife, hey, I think something is wrong there. And she
Yeah.
looks at me and she like, will you please stop putting on your detective hat? And actually I was interviewing a undercover cop. He says, you're human. Your brain
Mhm.
is now going to work that way. So
Yeah.
are we. But the difference between you and us is that we are trained and you're
Sure.
not. And you've learned from interviewing. I've interviewed like over 150 or 200 people, 200 agents and FBI and undercover cops and so on and so forth. He's like, your brain is going crazy right now.
Yeah.
The only advice he said to me, he said, I can give you is if you think something is happening, something is happening. The
Right.
only thing you can do and you should do is you should turn around, go to your local precinct and let them know.
Mhm.
Let them handle it. You've done your
Right.
job. do not say or do anything yourself. Don't try to be the hero. He was making joke of me. He's like, you already made yourself a hero. You're making a film, Jazz. No more hero-ness for you. Go to the local precinct.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about why our society tends to put shame on the victims when they
Yeah.
have absolutely done nothing other than being a victim?
There's a lot of thought still, like, well, you must have done something to deserve this, right? Which is ridiculous. Yeah, I think it's because it's the easy button. And I think the other piece of this too is people who have been victims, they are struggling to find some answer as to why on earth this could have happened to me. And there is no good answer. So it eventually, in the context of shame, it circles back to you. And you're like, oh, okay, there must be something wrong with me. There must have been something that I did. So I think that's a part of it. And as we talked about, earlier, bringing home that point is that there isn't anything that you did to provoke this. But yeah, I think it's because it's easy. And I also because predominantly, not exclusively, but I think predominantly this is with women. And I think in our society, women haven't gotten the attention that they deserve, whether it's with regard to healthcare or health studies, or social issues like this. So it's really easy to push that to the side.
I was interviewing a woman who is now very, very clean and standing on her own 2 feet, and she's pulled her life together, but she was sex trafficked. I said to her, I said, what is the most horrifying experience that you had, and actually what made you change and not do it anymore? She was in Las Vegas, and she said she was so high, and there was a bust. The cops came into the motel and so on, and that's where she was because she was working. And she asked the cop a question. The cop answered her question, and then she was high, so she retaliated. So the cop picked her up, slammed her on the ground so hard that her skull cracked. She was in a coma. She was taken to the hospital. So we took that and we posted that on our social media.
Mhm.
We normally get anywhere from, maybe 300 to 1,000 people who go through our social media and they like it and so on. This particular one got, in totality, in all the social medias, it got about 30,000.
Wow.
And do you know, 80% of them were negative? And they were like, she must have done something wrong. What did you do to deserve this? And I'm saying to myself, you have the time to make a horrible comment about somebody's life and say it was you who did it, not the cop. I was blown away with it. Like, why are we pointing a finger at this woman? She's pulled herself together. Now she's in a really good place. She's working. She's actually helping other girls come out of it. And you are pointing a finger and saying it was you?
And I talk about this not infrequently with regard to homelessness. I think all of us are one or two bad decisions away from being in a totally different place. Whether it's a sex trafficking situation or becoming unhoused or what have you, people who seemingly have their life together, couple of bad decisions, couple of bad mistakes, all of a sudden they're in a life they never imagined, and it's hard to get out of that.
So once that happens, what should a victim do? And how quick should they act?
I think it's a stepwise approach. And the first thing that I would tell anybody is your own personal safety. That's got to be paramount, because sometimes making those decisions, well, oh, you should just leave. It's not that simple and could be putting you at personal risk. So I'd say personal safety first. Second to that, assuming you've been successful in some way of removing yourself from that situation, is then looking at the healthcare piece, right? You may have been, more than likely, have been exposed to a variety of infectious processes. You need treatment for those things. There are lots of resources for that, whether it's, you know, your local emergency room, rape and abuse centers that can all help with that. And I think each one of those is really important. But I think at the end of the day, what will become the most important is the mental health support that you're going to need. No one is going to get through a situation like this unscathed. And that's not just a quick one and done, hey, let me meet with somebody. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I'm good. And motoring on for the rest of their life. Sadly, more often than not, when you're exposed to trauma like that, like capital T trauma, that's something that will very well require some level of mental health support for years, if not the rest of your life.
So, Jeff, going back to the film, what kind of preparation did you do to put yourself in the mindset of a detective? Because you play detective.
Cole, is this case really getting to you?
Her parents said she usually got a ride home from a friend. If he didn't leave any clue, this isn't his first. And it won't be his last.
Obviously, after reading the script, you kind of have a sense of your character's role. And the actor, the actress, I should say, that played Cole, she and I spent a lot of time kind of working backstories in terms of our relationship together, how long we had worked together, what her family situation was like, what mine was. And we had kind of worked out this scenario where she was more passionate than I was. I felt like Dan was a little more callous. This was just one of another horrible cases that he had just kind of become used to. I think the light bulb clicked when Cole said, and this won't be his last. And I think that sort of snapped my character into a world of like, okay, I need to be all in on this with you because this is wrong.
What is your goal for Trapped?
You know, education and prevention, I think is the goal. And my contribution to that film is successful in education or prevention, then I feel like, yep, I did my job.
I think you guys did absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't be able to pull this off without any one of you. So thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm super excited to do the film. I'm sure it'll be really something.